This is TWiT.
Ready? Fire away. Fire when ready, and I'll repeat the question. Oh, look at Ant. He knows how to make hearts.
That's all I know how to do.
Option Shift K.
I'm not cool as you all are.
The little apfel.
Here we go.
All right. So the first one is up.
All yours, Ant.
Share your home office setups. Any good tech, furniture, or desk? Good tech, probably my mixer. I have a Behringer X1204 USB mixer that I love. This thing is probably 6-7 years old, and it's still kicking, and it's just no issues with it. And my new standing desk that I got once we moved here to California. I love it. I don't know the name brand of it, but it's freaking awesome. I love a standing desk.
Awesome. Jason, you want to go next since we'll go from right to left? Yeah.
Sure. And same question. Home office setup. Okay, well, that's a complicated question because I have a home office and it's actually downstairs in the den, which has no way to close it off from the rest of the house. And so where I'm calling in right now is from my master bedroom, literally a corner of our master bedroom that I had to throw together and be like, how can I do this in a place where I can close the door? So,
well, that's your secondary office.
Your wife
now it
put
is
pictures from Buzz Out Loud up in the office. What is that picture?
That's Tech News Today.
Oh, it's Tech News Today.
Yeah, Tech News
I thought
Today.
I recognized Tom Merritt. And then is that you in the back?
Yeah, that's me attacking with the candy. Candy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Len Peralta, artist on that art. Yeah, I mean, my setup's really pulled together from stuff from the office. I have the Focusrite Scarlett, digital I/O for my audio. Obviously, the
I was
House
wondering where
40.
that went.
Yeah, one of them anyways.
No, just kidding.
I'm sure we have more. I've got a Razer Cairo, I believe, webcam that we had in the office because the webcam that I had here was ancient. I mean, it was like less than standard definition. Apparently, I don't do this very often for my house. And like a folding table. Like it is really sparse up here. It is literally just a seat behind a table that we had in the garage, and I just made it look presentable.
But you're getting it done. That's the thing, man. You're getting it done.
Yeah. If you could see the 100-foot Ethernet cable running through our hallway, down the stairs, into the living room in order to do this.
Because you were on Sonic DSL until minutes ago.
10 minutes ago.
Literally minutes ago. This morning we woke up and, we don't have internet anymore. It was supposed to overlap by a day, but apparently it didn't. Thankfully, Comcast, I called them, and after an hour and a half wait, they finally got to me and were able to activate the account. I already had bought a modem for it and everything. So this is Comcast Internet, baby.
Speed.
And, real quickly, what mic are you using, Ant? Because I'm using a Howell and Jason's using a Howell, both of them the same as our studio mics. What are you using?
Mine, this is, I guess it's an off-brand. It's a Legacy SM60. I got this several years ago for like $60, but everybody tells me it sounds great.
Yeah, I think it's a Shure if it's an SM, and they're really good. They're the same kind of mics. They're dynamic, large coil dynamic mics, so it does sound good. And it's good for your voice.
Sounds
it
good.
gives it a
it does sound good to you. Good with your voice.
Really good for your voice. Completely agree.
So good for your voice.
What are you using, Micah?
I have the Shure Beta 87A Super Cardioid microphone. It is a condenser microphone that I have paired. It's an XLR mic, so I've got it paired with the Tascam 2x2 USB interface. So that's what this was a recommendation a long time ago from Marco Arment. That's the microphone that I know that I'm not sure if he's still using this one, but this was the one that they used for a long time. So I upgraded from when I started doing podcasts professionally, when I started doing Clockwise on Relay, I upgraded from a Yeti to this microphone. I also have speaking of, you were talking about your fully desk chair you're waiting for. As a gift to myself, when I started working at Mobile Nations, I bought the fully Jarvis stand desk.
I got a Jarvis too. Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, so it rises up if I wanted to. I've got the bamboo one that has the curved thing so that you can sort of scoot in a little bit. I do kind of wish that I would have just gotten the one that was flat across, but I do love this thing. I was really happy. It was like my biggest purchase that I had made for myself, and so I was really happy to have that. Other than that, I am currently running on a 2015 MacBook Pro, the one that's had the good keyboard back in the day.
We should get you one of the new MacBook Airs.
This is one of my personal MacBook, or this is my personal MacBook Pro, and it is connected to, Jason, you were kind of talking about how you were having trouble with the connectivity thing. Elgato used to make, it's still out there, but they used to make a Thunderbolt 2 dock, and I still use that to this day. And whenever you mentioned your issue, I went online to look, and they don't sell them anymore they're all very expensive now because they're sort of relics. But I love that thing. It keeps me running, keeps me going. And then other than that, I've got 2 LED panel lights here, as well as some Hugo lamps that I have sitting to sort of provide some lighting. So yeah, that's my setup. Oh, and then my chair.
Look at that fancy chair.
Another one of my favorite. It's sort of like those Eon or Aeon or whatever they are chairs, but for much less money. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think now of the name of the company where I got
this. FakeAeron.com.
Yes, that's it. FakeAeron.biz, actually. FakeAeron.biz. But this is a super comfortable chair, and I didn't have to spend a bajillion dollars on it, so I'm quite happy with it. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers my work from home setup. Outside
we're
of that,
all using dynamic mics as opposed to the condenser mics. The Yeti is a condenser. Condensers are way too sensitive. If I were using a Yeti right now, you'd hear Lisa in the other room yelling, but you can't, right? She's silent.
Exactly.
But these have really good off-axis rejection, and the truth is, dynamics aren't very good. So that they don't pick up all the detail. So in a recording studio, you use like these Neumann condenser mics because you want to hear every bit of sound, but you have to put the person in a booth. Look where we are. Actually, I should really get Ant. In fact, John, if we have extras, we should get Ant and what's his name? Mikah. Sorry, just teasing. We should get
the guy that completes your sentences with you. You can't remember his name.
That hurt my soul a little bit there.
We should get the Ute. I know. I'm sorry. I'm just
that
teasing.
One guy.
We should get Ant and Mikah these Howell so that because now that they're going to be doing a lot of stuff from home, I want them to sound the same as everybody else.
Consistent. Yeah.
Yeah, consistency. Okay. And you can, I hear it, maybe you don't. There's a brightness, I think the frequency response is better on these than it is on your two. That yours are a little muddier.
Hands down it is. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Bob knows what he's doing, as you're from Bob Howell. I'm using, this is really cool, and let me not press the wrong button here. It's on a short leash. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. This is the Mix Pre from Sound Designs. And this is actually this is a very expensive unit, but this is a fancy USB interface, but it also has SD recording, it can handle up to 3 mics. Wow. It has a lot of fanciness built into it, and this really is part of a home studio setup that I don't use much. I can use it. In fact, really mostly I use it for 2 things: to do radio commercials because I can do them here with this and that. Nice. And record directly to Twisted Wave on my iMac Pro, which is what's sitting in front of me. For radio shows, I do use this, and this is kind of cool. This is similar to what we have in the in the studio. This is it's $7,000. It's a Comrex. This does, I know it's ridiculous. These guys overcharge, but because they have proprietary codecs. But this is what every radio station in the country uses. In fact, recently, Premier stopped using the ISDN lines that we used for 15 years. That was the default in radio, but phone companies don't want to provision them anymore because they have to have a separate ISDN switch. This uses the public internet. As a result, it's a little unpredictable. But if you have enough bandwidth, and that's what we're using on the radio show, and it's actually, I don't think anybody noticed the switch from ISDN to Comrex about a month ago. But I can use this at home to be on radio stations, and I have occasionally I'll do stuff on other radio stations. So this lets me do that. I take the ether. I'm on Wi-Fi right now. Sorry, I know you're not supposed to. I take the Ethernet cable, which is this behind me over here. That's the wine closet. And there's a Synology NAS in there. I'll unplug the Ethernet cable. It's a really long cable. Plug it in over here so that I at least have wired internet. But even then, it's kind of iffy. I'm sitting in front of an iMac Pro. That's the camera we're using here. I have 2 Apple Cinema displays on either side of me. So I have kind of a 3-display cockpit, which is nice. You see the Howell. You were mentioning the, I can't show you this, but the Thunderbolt dock I use is Thunderbolt 3 dock from Otherworld Computing, and it's really fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Really
that OWC one is really nice.
Yeah, it's also expensive. This it's funny, when I look at this gear now, I think, that was from a different time when we had money. And the truth is, you don't need this. I could be doing it on a laptop. It'd probably be better. A modern laptop would probably be at least as good.
Yeah, but, I failed to mention that I'm doing this here on my custom build computer. I built this probably 3 years ago.
That's an AMD box, right?
Yes, it's a Ryzen box. I think it's a Ryzen 7. I can't remember. It's been a couple years, but works just fine. 32 gigs of RAM, GTX 1660 in here. Yeah, it works just fine.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. It's funny. The iMac Pro is completely indistinguishable from at least the way I use it from any other iMac I've ever had. It's a ridiculous expense. It's silly to buy these things. What else? And I do have this, which I haven't yet incorporated in, but this is going to be in the long run, I think, a really interesting addition. This is Blackmagic's ATEM Mini. This is a $500 4-camera switcher.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, HDMI. And you see the Ethernet there. That's for control. You can run it from an iPad. It's got keying. It's got a bunch of stuff in it. Transitions, cut, auto, FTP. It's very kind of like a mini TriCaster.
Now, so I didn't know HDMI it can control. How does that work? You said it controls.
It doesn't control the cameras at all. You just plug the camera in and it's the output. So I could have,
gotcha.
If I'd wanted to, if I'd had the energy, I could have probably set this up to do this with that. And so you're doing switching too, Micah. You did it on iOS today this week.
Yeah.
So this would be like the next generation of
okay, so switching. More physical. Okay,
yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, these are really cool. I have yet to play with it, but at some point we probably should do a hands-on technology with it. So I kind of have overkill on the studio. And what's funny is I very rarely, I never use it on TWiT. Patrick Delahanty, our engineer, said the last time Leo did a show from here was 2010. I can't even think of why I might have. I'm gonna, even now during the shelter-in-place orders, I'm gonna go into the studio for our shows. So because I can lock it and all that stuff.
Yeah, because you locked in there.
Yeah, I'm locked in.
I forgot to mention.
Yes.
It just so the one thing, I've got a 2-monitor setup. It's 2 Dell U2415 monitors. Those are just like the ultra sharp monitors that Dell makes. And I just have to do another shout out to Fully because they make a really good monitor arm. It's a dual monitor arm. Nice. So it's got one thing that connects to the back of my Fully desk, and then those monitor arms connect to that. And yeah, it makes for a very good setup, and they're really adjustable. Sometimes you get those monitor arms and they don't quite work very well. You move them a little bit and they sag or they go up or what have you. They did a really good job. And then also I can remember that there was a time where I accidentally broke the plastic cable runner that goes into the arm, and I contacted them and said, hey, I'd like to order one of these. How can I buy it? And they sent it to me for free. So that was kind of some good
public service.
Yeah,
that's
good
what's
public
up.
service consumer.
We should mention Fully is going to be a sponsor. In fact, I'm really excited. I'm going to finally replace this chair, which has a bad hydraulic system.
A leaky hydraulic.
And, it's kind of like my old ball.
Don't bring this extra chair.
I'm going to use. They have this chair that's it's a Swedish chair that you could sit backwards in. So it's got all these cool things. Anyway, I can't wait to get that home. I'm letting it. It's in the office right now because we want to show it during the first ads, but then I'm going to take it home. Question from Merely Jim on the Twitter. Thank you, Laura. And this was, we could start with you, Jason. How's your internet holding up?
How's my internet holding up? Apropos, I mean, I talked about it a little bit a few minutes ago, but up until yesterday, I was on Sonic. And then this morning woke up and the Sonic had completely gone away. And I was like, okay, well, I guess the overlap didn't happen. So far, so good. Like once I finally got through to Comcast and got it zeroed in and everything, I mean, super stable. As far as I can tell, my quality coming to the studio today is better than it was yesterday for Tech News Weekly. Which
you look great.
Like even then it was Wi-Fi because I didn't have the right adapter for the old laptop. And so we really just kind of like crossed our fingers and hoped for the best. And yesterday it worked enough. And today things look pretty sharp as far as I can tell. So I'm pretty happy with it. But we're also keeping a lot of paying a lot of attention to how much data we're actually using, like how much we're using the internet. We're not letting our kids go crazy on the internet right now. We're really kind of spacing things out because we know that we've noticed that too much screen time with them, it becomes really difficult to transition out of that. And so that's helping our internet speeds as well. It's not keeping our local network congested at all.
Is anybody here not on Comcast?
No.
See, we're all on Comcast. This is this is the unfortunate nature of internet in the U.S. is you have one phone company offering DSL, and then people like Sonic can ride on that, or you have cable. And if in some areas, John Slanina is going to be getting Sonic Fiber. I'm so jealous. And we have Sonic Fiber in the studio, and that's obviously the best way to go. That's 10 gigabit symmetric. But at home, we're all using. I'm on Comcast business line. I have a business line into my office. And the only reason for that is it's 100 down and about 20 up. Okay. But there's no bandwidth cap. You have faster than me, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's because you're
stupid expensive.
Yeah.
I don't know why it is.
Because I have pretty good down, and I mean up is not great, but I have between 500 and 700 down regularly. And it's not a business line.
Wow, and that's Comcast?
Yeah, that's on Comcast. Yeah, Xfinity. Okay.
Because you're in you're a newer building and newer installation.
That's what it is. Yep. Yeah. I think that must be what it is.
And also, we also don't go down during.
Go ahead.
You're in an apartment complex, and what happens there is they put a lot of bandwidth in, and you probably have a lot of old people neighbors who aren't using it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Lucky you. Although stay away from them.
Yeah, exactly. We're all minding our manners and minding our business. I have to just tell this story really quick. A live update. So I used to live in Springfield, Missouri, and lived there for a couple years, which it's in southern Missouri. And a woman who had gone to Walmart to buy toilet paper. This just happened yesterday. Her water broke and she gave birth in the empty toilet paper aisle in Springfield, Missouri.
That kid will have a story to tell.
What a story. Yeah. She had to go to
in the empty toilet paper aisle.
She had to go to the crowd control people at Walmart and say, my water just broke.
Well, here's a place no one goes.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So that child will be born completely immune to coronavirus.
Yes,
right. I've been telling people, and I just saw this on Reddit. A historian has agreed. Everybody should be keeping a journal of this because Daniel Defoe, who wrote Gulliver's Travels, wrote his Journal of the Plague Year in the 1600s, and it's a classic. And I think that we're living in a completely historic moment. And everybody should be journaling this and writing about it because even if only for your descendants, this is going to be something of interest. How we lived through the plague.
Yeah, I've got that Pretty Bear book that you got me for Christmas.
Write it in there in your Hobonichi. Yeah,
my Hobonichi. That's it. Thank you.
My Hobonichi Techo. I didn't even mention the Hobonichi Techo. That is a very important part of the home office. That and. You of course you have, I'm sure, Micah, your pen set, right? Yes. Your fountain pen collection. I had to write what ink is in each one, so I would know what color I'm going to get when I.
Wow. Yeah, so you don't have to scratch it all out.
Here's a question for you from Rosemary Orchard.
Oh,
Micah, you start with
Rose,
this one
what's
because
up?
it's your old friend Rosemary.
Mhm.
If you were a device, this is a Barbara Wawa question. If you were a device, what device would you be? Hey, look,
Meow.
it's Lisa.
Oh, hey, what's
Hi,
up?
everyone.
It's the boss. The boss.
A boss.
Well, yeah, no, see.
Oh, I
got my
like
kitty
that.
cat
That's
shirt.
cute. I need the one that says woof.
Yeah.
No. We'll send you a meow one, too. I'll get you hot pink.
Okay, I
Send
mean,
me
I
one
would
that
wear
says-
the hot pink, but I can't say meow. I can't do it.
Send me one that says
So
burp.
if I was
What
a device,
device would
what
you be?
device would I be? I would be an Apple
Oh, boy.
Watch. I would want to be an Apple Watch. I already do body tracking of my own. I'm always trying to keep up with, what all the different processes of my body. So I would find that really cool. And then the fact that time and time again, we see people who are being helped by their Apple Watches when they need to go to the hospital for whether it be fibrillation or something going on with their heart. I think it'd be super cool. I strive to help people, and to be able to help people in that way, I think would be really awesome. So yeah, I would be an Apple Watch. Ant Pruitt, if you were a device, what device would you be?
At one point, I would have said a nice high-end Matrice drone, because you have the beautiful camera and you get to fly and see so many wonderful vistas. But nowadays, drones are getting a really, really bad reputation, and they're doing everything in their power to keep you from flying these things nowadays. So not sure, but would have been drone.
I think that's a good answer. Whether they're allowed right now or not, increasingly, like you said, the restrictions coming down on drones, but it doesn't matter, man. You can be whatever device you want to be. And if you're soaring through the sky in a drone, that sounds like the right answer to me. I wasn't even thinking about drone, but that sounds pretty beautiful.
But I love flying. I'm like the one person that enjoys going to different airports and enjoys just looking out the window seat of a plane. If you let me do it every week, I'd do it. But then I also love cameras, and those high-end drones have some amazing cameras. And just thinking about all of the different views you could get at, a couple hundred feet in the air, especially in an area like this here in Northern California. It's so daggum pretty here. Goodness, it's so pretty.
What about you, Leo? What about you, Jason?
Oh, okay. I might have to go a little bit off the script a little bit, because when I think of devices, I can't really think of one that I would want to be, but sticking with technology in a sense anyways, I'd probably be like an electric guitar of some sort. I'm not really quite sure which one.
That counts.
But, sometimes
Plug
I don't
it in,
necessarily think of an electronic. Yeah, exactly. You plug it in. It's not technology like the technology we talk about on the network so often. But I don't know, like, especially in moments like these, like music is such a great way to warm the heart and kind of escape a little bit. And I would want to be connected with that. So I'd say electric guitar.
I love that. I'm a classic, so mine would be something a little bit older from the good old days. This
Holy moly!
Holy moly! This is as old as I am. It's from 1956. It's a Rolleiflex camera. Ant, you'll appreciate this. This is a medium format film. You have to buy special film for it. And
Top down viewfinder
from the bottom. In fact, let me take the lens caps off if I can remember. Oh yeah, you do this. This is kind of
top
funny.
down viewfinder.
Yeah.
Oh,
Whoops.
yeah.
There's two different lenses.
That thing is
isn't that awesome? But you have to get
Yes.
used to shooting like upside down, you're from top down, and then you also have to remember to wind it after every shot. You won't be able to take a shot, and you only get one shot, and it takes a long time to get it developed. So I'm like this creaky, old, vintage technology that still has a little bit of
You still have a
style.
cool factor, though.
It definitely has a cool factor.
It does.
I love this. I have a few older cameras that at one point Chris Marquardt talked me into buying. He says, "Oh, film, it's coming back." He was wrong, but now, and I mean, this is so beautiful, so classic. And I have a Leica somewhere on my Leica M3, and here I'll show you that. That's also a classic.
I love the chat room.
This is probably a better camera than the Rolleiflex, but and I have a Leica lens I can put on it. I always buy the leather because I want to look like my dad when I was a kid. He always had a little leather case on his Brownie camera. This doesn't have the lens on it, but that's a Leica M3. This is quite a classic camera.
That's pretty.
Also, exactly as old as I am.
Oh, wow.
1956. Yeah. These are both 64-year-old cameras, but sometimes technology, I'm hoping, ages well.
Yeah.
So you're saying on the top, those weren't USB-A ports?
No,
I saw there.
I think it's USB, micro USB. They're pretty old, yeah. This you also have to remember to wind.
Gotta wind them.
I don't do this, but they say if you're really one of the cool kids, the old guys, this is when you're done with the film, you pull this up and you have to roll the film back in and take it out. They would hold this and spin the I don't do
Oh my
this.
goodness.
Spin the camera around like a noisemaker. Yeah, that's if you're like a super pro Leica user. I'm not. Anyway, that's a lot of fun. These are old stuff. All right, another question.
I saw a question in there speaking about photography. Here, where'd it go? The chat room moves so fast. But it was a question about they like taking pictures with their DSLR, but they don't necessarily.
You want me to? Here, I can read it for you. This is from Pat H0107 on the Twitter.
That's the one.
And I love taking photos with my DSLR, but find all the Photoshop, etc. so confusing. Yeah. Question is, can a good photo be achieved without having to use photo editing software, or is it no longer about the camera? It's just about how good you are with Photoshop. Thank you.
My answer to that is it's always about the camera and the story. Nowadays, it does help somewhat if people can do good post-processing to get attention. But I will always argue that one of the most influential and maybe even controversial images of all time is from World War II with Iwo Jima. And the soldiers are putting the flag, trying to put the flag up. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, what a classic, huh? That was probably shot with one of these rollies, I would bet,
Right. And technically that shot was not properly exposed. It's blurry. Right. I mean, it's just...
How was the horizon, Ant?
Oh, what? Don't get me started. But again, technically, it's not a great shot from a technical standpoint. But the story behind that shot it hits you. It gets you right in the feels, and that's what counts in photography. I like to use Photoshop and post-processing to enhance the story when I shoot, and that's what I recommend for others if they would like to. But I always tell people, try to get it right in camera first, period. Yeah. I don't care what camera it is.
That is a classic picture. In fact, I bet you the pictures people most remember often are like that. They're not technical. They're emotional. They get your emotions going. And I wouldn't even say it's the camera. It's the photographer. Because I know, and the only reason I say that is I keep buying cameras. I don't get any better.
I wasn't going to go there, but you did.
Is photography your hobby, Ant?
Oh no, it's a little more than that. I was up at 6 this morning, and by 7 I was shooting. So wow. I consider it more than a hobby. I was shooting at 7 this morning, watching hummingbirds.
Oh, that's
neat. Fun!
When we were in Vegas for CES, Ant was up late, and I said, "Oh, you were playing poker, weren't you?" And he said, "No, I was shooting."
I was shooting.
I was shooting. That's awesome.
Get out and shoot.
Interesting shots from Vegas these days, man. It's just empty. It's so sad.
Yeah, ghost town.
Ghost town. And music's got to be your hobby, right, Jason?
I mean, yeah, obviously, like
more than a hobby for you too, right?
I think it's more.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, and what's been really interesting for me the last couple of days is that for Christmas, my girls got from Santa, they got a kind of like medium-sized acoustic guitar. Not because they had asked for it, but because Santa thought, oh, well, someday, like I would love to teach them how to play. And it went relatively untouched until now. Suddenly, they're really excited to play around with it.
Neat.
And so
that's
the
great.
last couple of days, I put together lessons for them. We sit down and I teach them a chord, and then we learn how to strum the chord, and then we transition from one chord to another. Suddenly they're both learning how to play guitar, and it's just really cool. Like, I'm not playing a whole lot of guitar for myself right now, but the fact that we're able to kind of do it together, it's like pulling me back in, which is usually how I go with music. I go in waves. I'm either all in or all out, and just cycle between those every other year, it seems like, for some reason.
Did your folks teach you?
No, actually, neither of my parents are musical in any way, really. It was just I just my group of friends that I grew up with, we were highly creative. We were either making movies, or we were writing scripts, or we were making music, and music just kind of always stuck with me. So
What's your hobby, Mikah? Besides chihuahuas?
Probably would be, yeah, exactly. Probably would be baking, cooking. I have the problem of having way too many hobbies, and then I don't ever see them as hobbies because I just am constantly doing.
Some people call that ADD.
Stuff. Yeah, well, that is exactly what it is.
We're all ADD. That's just a given.
Yeah, kind of a nerdy thing, but yeah, I would say certainly baking and cooking are kind of the ones that stick and are things that I do pretty regularly. Other than the dogs, I guess would be the other one. Yeah, I think that's probably what it is.
I'm like Jason. I'm a master musician. My hobby is the Moog synthesizer.
Is that the free? That's the free app, right?
That's some ASMR.
Good to download while you can. There's two. We talked about it on MacBreak Weekly. There's two free synthesizer apps. Oh, Model D Moog, and this is Korg's module, which is also.
Cool. Let me open it up.
Wow, I sound pretty good. That's a little Korg. Isn't that cute? It's it's so cute. It looks like a little Korg piano, electric piano.
Now, I wonder if you have the right connector, could you plug in like a MIDI controller to that and control it? I have to imagine that.
I would guess so. Why else would they make it, right?
I mean, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty neat to have that. I mean, you wouldn't want to play the piano on your iPhone. It's a little better on the iPhone.
Those tiny little keys. But you know what? The way the internet is, I wouldn't be surprised if there's someone that has a YouTube video playing on that tiny little phone, like the most complicated concerto on the thing, and it sounds amazing. So
get a cat. It's it's the next keyboard cat. Here's a question from Lyle Goff, or Goo, or Go, G-O-G-H, or Gach. You've written quite a number of books, Leo. Would you consider writing a self-biography? Never. About yourself as a tech enthusiast? If not, who would you like to write your story? You know, it's already been written. Jason Heiner, right? Your buddy Ant wrote a great book, Follow the Geeks, and I think I'm chapter 10. And he spent a lot of time, he and his co-author spent a lot of time with me picking my brain. So that's as close to a memoir as you're going to get. I hate writing books. I have all my books.
I recommend getting that book. It was a good book.
Follow the Geeks is great. I highly recommend it. I don't know if you can, if I tilt the Mac Pro, I don't know if you can see it.
Is that an encyclopedia?
Yeah, actually, I should show you my bookshelf. So these here, let's see if I can do it with my finger. Those are my books that that is all Leo Laporte books, all of those white bindings.
Oh, okay.
And then, that's the Oxford English Dictionary, which is hidden by that Mac right there, but it's like 20 volumes. Because and then above it, you can't see it. There's a World Book Encyclopedia, which I got when my kids were little, because that's what you did when my parents bought a World Book when I was little, and I read it religiously. And so when my kids were little, I bought, I think, probably the last encyclopedia of all time. But I own it. If you want to borrow it, Jason, for your kids, they can come over.
Thank you.
So
I can show them a relic and be like, this is an encyclopedia. This was before Google was a thing.
When I was a kid, when I would go to the bathroom, I'd take a volume. My favorite was S, because it's thick. It's a big.
No, man. A is the best.
A's a good one?
For animals.
Right. Oh, yeah, you're right.
You go to animals and it just lists tons and tons of. Oh man, that was my favorite. I'd look at that every day.
These were expensive too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my chair went down. But this
Had a
this is
door-to-door salesman.
leather bound, and it has the gold, and yeah, these were beautiful. It's really kind of a shame.
Yeah.
I think this is historic now, but honestly, as a kid, for me, it was really fun just to take a volume and go through it. Here's archaeology. I mean, Wikipedia is amazing, and I still, spend every day. I spend some time at Wikipedia, but there's something about this. You can really
Yeah, there really is. I mean, as a kid, it was amazing for the same reason that the internet is amazing now. The sheer thought, the sheer fact that everything that you would need to know about everything is in these pages. That's what we could think of the internet as now. It's a total transition, but basically the same desire is there. It's like, oh, I could literally learn about anything. It's all right here.
Yeah. Honestly, this is one of the losses, I think, that the internet has. There's quite a few, but this is one of the losses. On the other hand, especially right now when we're all sheltering in place, boy, I'm glad we got the internet. We couldn't do this.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Right?
No kidding.
What kind of cell phone does everyone use? Daily driver, Ant?
Pixel 4 XL.
Nice. Me too. I love that phone.
I would still use Pixel line. They just work,
How about you, Jason?
Same answer. I mean, the Pixel 4 XL is what I'm using on a regular basis. Oh, sorry, let me hold it up with my freshly painted nails.
What is that?
He's got Frankenstein nails. Stand back.
Yes, a couple of days ago, my older daughter gave me a full manicure and foot massage. Let me tell you, she was like, "Dad, you're working really hard. Let me take care of you." And I'm not even.
You could have just said you could have just said someone hit you with a blue hammer on your fingernails. That would have been fine.
I think that's so sweet.
Yeah, your story is much sweeter. I like your story better.
Pixel 4 XL. That's definitely my phone of choice. I do happen to have the S20 Ultra, which I had used. I did a photo shoot out of this on Hands on Tech not too long ago. And
it's not a daily driver, though.
It's not my preference. You know what? Honestly, I think this is officially too big for me even. And I've got big hands. I'm used to big phones, but for whatever reason, this thing feels big. It's heavy. It's fine, but I just don't know why. Like for $1,500, I don't know why you need it. So that's my short review
on that.
And I think everybody knows what Micah and I use.
Yeah, iPhone 11 Pro Max.
Blackberry Curve
in midnight. Yes, Blackberry. Actually, the T-Mobile Sidekick. Thank you. In midnight green, which you can't see because of the light, but that's what this was.
I almost answered Rosemary Orchard's question by saying I would be a Blackberry Pearl. Would be my
that's a good answer too. Yeah,
that was the last phone I owned before iPhone came out in 2007. Yeah, I love the iPhone, and I have to say, while I love Android because of the configurability, you can really customize it. And if you're going to use Android, you should absolutely use a Pixel.
Yeah,
but I'm worried about Android these days. I just feel like there's security issues rampant. And there's also reliability issues. I still, funky things happen. Still, don't they happen to you, Jason?
I mean, I don't feel like they happen to me as frequently. It's either that or I'm just so used to it that I just kind of roll with the punches. You know what I mean? Like
syndrome. Yeah,
absolutely. Like I'm so used to the weird things that pop up that they don't faze me anymore. And I just kind of like work through it like, oh yeah, I know the solution to that. And I just continue on with my life. Not everybody else has, I guess, the exposure to that sort of stuff as I do. And I fully realize that. I see that in my wife using her Android device. She has a Pixel 2 XL right now. And, she encounters things that in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's not a problem, but she's just a user. Yeah. This isn't her career, so it's different. Yeah. Right. I agree with you. There are issues. I'm super numb also to the kind of the insecurities and the security issues of Android at this point. Like there've been so many stories over the years as far as that's concerned that I find I'm getting kind of numb to them, and that's probably not a good thing,
Privacy too, right? I mean, we just kind of accept that Google, That's fine. That's their business. And I'm not convinced that Apple is perfect in either security or privacy, but I think they have a little bit better story to tell. So, for a long time, I still use both. And for a long time, I really defended Android, but it's getting harder for me to do that, I think. And the iPhone has been a pretty good pal. I have to say, I've stopped using Windows entirely, man. I don't know how you do it, Ant, because it's just a car wreck.
So you're
lately.
mostly Linux, huh?
Linux now, yeah. In fact, I just I spent this is the new Dell XPS 13, which is, by the way, a spectacular. If you want a little computer, and this will be interesting. I'll do a hands-on tech comparing this with the new MacBook Air, which comes next week, because they're very comparable in terms of lightness, size.
It has Surface Laptop vibes too.
Yeah, a little bit. The MacBook is the iPad Pro with the new keyboard is gonna really put the challenge to Surface, I think. Yeah. But this is nice, and I put Linux on this thing, and as far as I'm concerned, that's a really nice, rock solid, great battery life, easy to use, and I love the portability of this, much like the MacBook Air. Of course, I got it right before the MacBook Air came out. Foolish me.
Somebody in the chat was asking you to show that, so I'm glad.
Roberto wanted me to show it, so there you go, Roberto. And yesterday I was putting Arch on this. In fact, that's the picture I tweeted: baking sourdough bread, putting Arch on it, and watching CNN obsessively. Our son, our 17-year-old, complained when Lisa got home. He said, Leo is watching news all day. It made me very anxious, so we're not watching any more news.
Oh, my goodness.
That's a good recommendation.
Can't blame him.
I don't blame him.
There's no reason to watch that all day.
It doesn't make me anxious so much, but I'm sure it does. In fact, that's the next question from @Cinerolo, Cinerolo. Any new apps that help connect friends and family during shelter in place? What are you guys using?
House Party, 1,000%.
I love that recommendation, and we're going to do that with Michael's friends. We're going to play Heads Up. It's better than playing Heads Up in real life.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
So what I love about House Party, I think I was talking to Lisa about it. The thing that I think that makes it great is the fact that it is a sort of there's no barrier to entry or no friction. So whenever you do, FaceTime or you do something like that, it feels more abrupt because suddenly someone is calling you. Whereas with House Party, you launch the app, and by launching the app, you're saying I'm available, and then somebody can pop in. You can set up private channels so that, just the people that you want to be able to access the room can, but you add your friends and only your friends can pop in on you. So I can, at any time while I'm doing other things, have my iPad sitting there, have House Party open, and then people know they can pop in. And that's how I ended up talking to my friend Kathy Campbell, who hopped in during iOS Today the other day. And we started playing as we were going. It's a lot of fun, and it makes it so that you can say, hey, I'm available right now. And then people can easily frictionlessly become a part of the conversation. And my partner and I are actually planning on using it soon with some of his friends locally to play some games and stuff too. And then I played it with family members as well. So House Party, I'm really impressed with what they're doing, and they continue to make improvements and add new activities and games that you can play within the app.
There's a weird
that's a great suggestion.
Story. I'm opening House Party. Sorry. There's a wheel. Oh, looks weird. I'm sorry.
Look at Linux. Look at Linux there.
There's a wheel. Let me House Party with Anthony here. There's a weird. Oh well, forget it. I'll stop screen sharing. That's just gonna make everybody insane. There's a weird backstory to House Party because people have watched our network for a long time. By the way, House Party works on Mac OS and Chrome OS as well as Android and iOS. So you could play it with people on a Chromebook.
I'm installing it right now.
Yeah.
I haven't even thought about House Party.
Do you remember Jeff Needles? Right?
Yeah,
remember
absolutely.
Jeff? Yeah.
Needles.
So he was a young kid, came out of college, talked his way into a job at TWiT. Yeah, I love Jeff. And he left. Well, he was a Meerkat fanatic. Remember that?
Yep.
We actually had to eventually say, stop it, because Meerkat let you stream live. Kind of like Periscope is doing right now for us. In fact, Periscope really put the kibosh to Meerkat.
Oh, I
But he was,
remember
totally,
that. Yeah.
Meerkat was first. Meerkat was first.
Meerkat was first, and he was totally into it. And I finally said, Jeff Needles, stop, because he would Meerkat all the time. And then he went to work for them. And Meerkat, because of Periscope and other similar stuff, went under, but they took the technology and they made House Party. So it's the same company that did Meerkat with the same basic technology. And a House Party is perfect because it's built in. Heads Up is built in. Other games are built in. Much better to play Heads Up with House Party. And I was just installing it on my Mac. That's why you had the weird screen sharing stuff. What else? What other apps? That's a really good pick.
For us, it's pretty much just been Duo because everybody's just trying to keep up with family back east, and Duo seems to just work and be able to sit in the same room and chat with one another and you know, face to face, if you will. But there's no real games or anything like that. Everybody's just wanting to chit chat and talk. The teens, on the other hand, they'll use Duo just to talk to the family, but they're not using Duo to talk to their buddies back east or whatever. They're using TikTok or Snapchat.
Yeah. Well, I duoed with my daughter because she can't visit, right? And I duoed with her for about an hour yesterday. And then with my mom, it's FaceTime because she has an iPad. But these video, and we're using Skype right now, any of these video calling solutions are fantastic.
Yeah.
When you can't visit with people, at least, I mean, it's not quite the same, but it's pretty darn close. Again, I feel like, thank God this happened now, not 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think it's better than doing SMS back and forth because it's real time.
Right.
Exactly.
There's that one app, I think it's called Marco Polo. It's basically a video version of SMS. And people dig that, but I'm thinking it's not real time. It's no different than sending a text to someone. You know, why not use a Duo or whatever face chatting app that like FaceTime or something? But to each his own.
My grandma turned 70 on March 18th, and she, obviously is quarantining, and that stunk for her. That, you know, her birthday, we didn't get to really do a big celebration. And so I told her, you know, everybody who has a birthday in March, and probably also everybody who has a birthday in April, gets to choose a day later in the year to be their official birthday or their honorary birthday. But in the meantime, we just used group FaceTime. I'm not gonna lie, group FaceTime is kind of trash, but it worked okay because it was the app. I gave her my iPad that I had before my most recent one. So I think it was a 10.5 inch iPad Pro, and she uses that as her computer. And so that was an easy thing. She didn't have to get a new app or anything like that. I could just FaceTime her, and then we added everybody else to the call. And so that worked well to sing her happy birthday and chat with her. And then I didn't know it, but now in St. Joseph, they have DoorDash. And so I used DoorDash to have a cake delivered to her. So she was able to have a birthday cake as well.
Smart.
Nice.
So that was nice, you know, and I said, you know, no contact, please. And they left it at the door, and I had them, you know, write on the box, happy birthday to her and everything. So I would say that DoorDash is honestly a way that you can think about. I know Ant has his issues with DoorDash, but it is a way that you can think about.
I haven't heard that. What are your issues with DoorDash?
Yeah.
My boys was always ordering from DoorDash when I cook. And I'm like, dude, I cooked. There's plenty of food here. Yeah. Get your butt down here and eat.
What I do is I give my mom and my daughter Grubhub and Uber Eats and a few other different. I put my credit card on their app.
Yeah.
And I get the bills, and I can always see when Abby is hungry. And I can always, and then it used to be my mom would entice her grandkids over there in college and back east in the same town as her. And she would entice them by ordering pizza. So I always knew when Grady and Will were visiting my mom, because
that's
there was
funny.
Big, like 5 large pizzas. I can always tell. But that's another nice thing to do for an elder or a family member who's stuck in and maybe doesn't cook. My mom, who cooked for me my whole life, is an amazing cook. Is too old. She's 87. She doesn't cook anymore. So giving her that, I think, has been. I said, I can't take you to dinner, but at least I can buy you dinner. And I think that's a really nice thing to be able to do. But you're right. If your kids are ordering when you're cooking, that's not good.
I'm like, dude, will you please stop? Oh gosh, I don't have a problem with the service. It's just that
called Petaluma Food Taxi. Have you tried that?
No,
haven't seen that.
I haven't heard about that.
Yeah, it's Petaluma Food Taxi to Commerce. Something. It's a couple of people. One of the guys drives one of those meter maid things. What do they call those? And
those
you've
little.
seen him around town, I'm sure.
Yeah.
He's driving around in one of these little meter maid carts, and he's got a flag on it and stuff.
Oh my gosh,
Very local.
That's what that is. Oh man, I've seen that.
By the way, it's really good to patronize those, not only because, of course, your Dashers and these other people, these gig workers are suffering mightily right now, but so are the restaurants. And so this is at least giving some business to those restaurants. Many of the restaurants at Petaluma none of them can have dining rooms open, but many of them are doing takeout. And that's a good way, I think, to support the local economy if you can.
Back home, one of my friends, it was really cool that she did this with folks that are not able to work right now. She had compiled a spreadsheet. She said, this is a very local, very more private thing if you're looking for something to do. But she compiled a spreadsheet. She said, reach out to me if you are a person who, is a tip worker or is in one of these things. And I'm going to put together a spreadsheet of the names and the Cash App or what I can't think of the other one, the Venmo or whatever usernames. And then people can, if they want to and if they're able to, send you a tip, as if you were working right now, being that you can't, make up for those funds that have been lost. So again, that's more of, it's among a group of friends or among a community kind of situation. But I found that really, I don't know, that made me smile a little bit, made me happy, especially as I'm thinking about back home. My sister just got the notice that she's not going back to work until April something. And
she's not going back to work at all. I got bad news for you, Micah.
Yeah, she works at Penny's.
I thought she was a teacher. Okay.
No.
Penny's?
No. She works,
JC Penny's?
JC
You
Penny's,
still have JC Penny's?
We do, right? Thought those were closed.
Gone.
Yeah, ours closed just a couple of years ago in Charlotte.
I thought they were out of business. I didn't realize they were still around.
No, they're still around doing fine in St. Joe, but she's not able to go back to work until then. So
Missouri's been able to protect itself a little bit, as they did in 1918. It's kind of an interesting story about
tell
St.
me more.
Louis. Oh, you haven't read this?
About 1918? No.
It's a tale of two cities. Philadelphia in 1918, during the Spanish flu, had a big parade with 200,000 people to send the troops off to World War I. Massive epidemic. 400 miles away, St. Louis basically did what we're doing, sheltered in place. Almost no cases at all. And it's used as a classic example of why shelter in place works to slow down contagion.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So more questions from Ant. Apparently, a lot of people have photography questions for you, Ant.
Lots of people are taking a photography show.
Well, heck, okay, sure. Let's do it.
Actually, before you do that, I'm gonna do Keld's in just a second. Before that, sure. Alex Cuttadine, and you could start with this, Ant. I don't know if you have an answer, but I'll give it to you. If you could do a show with any former TWiT network host, former. Who would it be and why? Yeah, former.
Ooh,
do you have
that's
one?
That's a good one.
Boy, that is a good question. Man, I like Robert Heron.
I love Robert. I agree.
I like Robert Heron. That guy. I remember watching him on here and watching him on DLTV, and you guys. I think you and him did screensavers together a couple times, and just his passion. For video, just, I love that. Him and Scott Wilkinson the same way. It's just the amount of passion that they have for video, it just oozes out. When we did the CES segments with you and Mr. Wilkinson, I loved shooting it just because I could see the passion on his face.
He's one of the old Tech TV mafia. Here is a picture. There's Robert with the science shirt on, David Prager. The red shirt, Kevin Rose all the way to the right. And I don't know who the other two guys are, but still that's out in front of Tech TV.
Wow.
Robert and Patrick do a home theater show. Still. Yeah.
AVXL, right?
Yep, AVXL, and he has Heron Fidelity, which is his home theater business. Yeah. I imagine he, like many, is struggling right now because who's going to invite a guy in to calibrate the TV, right?
Right.
I would do a show with Ray Maxwell because I miss Maxwell's house. I don't know if you remember that show. That was we did that on TWiT. Gosh, it might even be 10 years ago. He's a color scientist, brilliant guy, and would explain stuff. And I love doing that show. It's one of all the shows that aren't on TWiT anymore, the so-called retired shows. I miss all of them. Yeah, it's not like we cancel a show because we want to. Right. We only cancel a show if it can't support itself, just only because I don't have deep pockets, and I can't. Look at me. Do I look like I have money in the bank? I look like Bernie Sanders, for crying out loud.
I mean, you're using an old IBM keyboard behind you, for God's sake. Come on.
Right. That was not cheap, by the way, but not enough to keep Maxwell's house going. But Ray called me the other day and said, "Hey, I bought a Mac Pro." I said, "Oh, you're doing pretty well, Ray." He said, "Well, I don't have any kids, and I'm spending the inheritance." And so he bought a Mac Pro with 32 terabytes of RAID storage. He also bought the XDR display. And I said, "Did you buy the entry level?" He said, "No, it got middle of the range." I said, "Geez, Ray, what are you doing?" But he's a color scientist, and he says the XDR is incredible. Anyway, he had a bug and got Apple to actually make some changes in the firmware because it turns out nobody had ever put 32 terabytes worth of storage inside the Mac Pro. And the promised RAID card that drives the RAID in there didn't talk to the Mac firmware well enough, so the fans didn't work. So the whole thing overheated in one day.
Oh, but no.
They fixed it. They fixed it for him after he reported it. In any event, he's going to do our hands-on tech review of the Mac Pro. We've scheduled that.
Fun.
That's going to be awesome.
He's the only person I know who has a Mac Pro. Even Alex Lindsay doesn't have a Mac Pro.
Dang.
Can I ask a question? Real quick? What is a color scientist?
Beats me. I don't. He told me a million times, and I can't remember. I can't understand. Does
he analyze color and just knows color so well?
I think I thought it dealt more on the physics side of things.
Well, it does. It's both.
Because you're not necessarily doing it just for televisions, but it's for a wide variety of things.
He worked at Adobe, I think, and he worked at a company very well known, but I can't remember the name. Color consultancy, basically, where they would work with companies. You know about this, Ant, because if you're using Photoshop, it's really important that the colors be accurately represented, right?
Right.
And he's the guy who taught me there's no such color as magenta. Did you know that? Tell T-Mobile that, because there's no such color.
What does that mean? There's no such color as magenta.
Go back and watch Maxwell's house. There's a whole show on it.
Oh, so if there's an episode on it, I will gladly, because I'm going, isn't that subjective versus objective?
That's the whole point. It is subjective. There's subjective magenta. There's no objective color magenta.
There's no. Yeah, reality is a falsehood too. It's all subjective.
Well,
there's no midnight green either.
Exactly. There's no such thing as a chihuahua either. That's, we've invented that.
And now we have a show title. There's no such thing as a chihuahua, ladies and gentlemen. Jason or Micah, any former hosts that I could think of who Jason might mention, but I won't say anything. Go ahead.
Honestly, I've done so many awesome shows with TWiT hosts of the past 10 years. It's hard to pick one, but I would probably have to go with Tom Merritt, only because I wouldn't even be doing any of this if it wasn't for Tom. Yeah. And my history with Tom goes well beyond TWiT, back to CNET with Buzz Out Loud, and I look very fondly on those years. It was just
a picture of him on your wall, my friend.
What would Tom Merritt do? Yeah,
I thought I knew the answer to this. I just suspected. Is that a Len Peralta cartoon? I bet it is. So we saw Tom at CES. I said, "Tom, are you getting thinner?" There's the picture.
No,
okay. Are you getting? Is that not Tom? What is that?
No. I'll wait. No, it's not my turn yet. I'll wait till my turn. Yeah.
But I said, "Are you getting thinner?" He says, "No, I've always been this thin." I said, "My God, you're." But Tom is super talented. He still does the Daily Tech News show, DTNS. You can see it on Patreon, and he brought in Sarah Lane, which is great. Roger Chang is there. I miss them all. You know that. Yeah.
Becky Worley.
All right.
Oh man, that show was so much fun.
Okay. John says he has something from Maxwell's House, episode 4. It's all in your head how color works.
Magenta, the false color.
Yeah. But watch the show. All of the Maxwell's houses are still on the TWiT website. Look in the retired shows section, and you can watch them all. And we're going to get Ray back real soon. But I think of Dr. Kiki, who was just awesome. Sarah Lane, I miss her. And going on and on. Catherine Hall, our photographer, This Week in Photography was, I think, just a wonderful show. And I looked forward to it every week. And we can go on and on. And, Micah, do you have a picture of somebody you miss?
Yeah.
One of my faves too.
Let's see if I can stop the glare. Oh man, that's
Megan.
really bad. So Megan and my mom hanging out here in the horrible glare.
You have become friends with Megan. She became your Petaluma tour guide.
Yeah, and in fact, she is sort of my West Coast mama. So it was fun. She was meeting my mom, and so it was West Coast mom meeting mom was the whole thing that Megan and my mom had decided together. So that's not my titling. That's theirs. But no. Okay. So when I first was sort of invited to. Was given the job offer. At the time, I did not know yet because it was not announced officially. And so I didn't know, along with everyone else, as someone outside of TWiT, that Megan would be leaving. And so at that point in time, I thought that I would be working with her. And so I was excited about that. And, it was made clear. Oh, am I frozen? Before I accept.
Let it go. Let me fix that. Why don't you sing that, Jason? I think you probably know it by heart.
Let it go.
There we go.
Let it go.
Anyway, so I was excited to come out and hang out with Megan and do the show. But, before I accept the position, I found out that she was moving on to a different thing.
Well, that's why the position existed.
Right.
Or maybe not. Actually, I'm trying to remember. I think, no, you know what? I don't remember exactly, but I think we were going to offer you the job anyway. And then when she decided to move on, we said, oh, well, we got a show for Micah.
Yeah.
We're hiring him.
That's at least how it was.
I think we were hiring you anyway, weren't we? Yeah, you remember.
Yeah, that's the story that I was told.
That's what Lisa said as well. Yeah, I was supposed to be hired, and I was going to be more in a producer role at first, and then both Jason and you said, "Well, let's have Micah be on our shows." So I appreciate that you both wanted me to, join you on iOS Today, join you on.
Yeah.
So anyway, it would be fun to do a show with Megan, and she's been on iOS Today before and stuff. So I did get that opportunity. That would be my person.
Yeah. In fact, we should have had her on here. Megan, if you're watching, no, I guarantee you, not watching. She's got better things to do. Real quick from Mac File, what are your favorite TWiT moments besides this? Actually, This reminds me of another favorite TWiT moment when we do those New Year's Eve marathons were always really fun. And the highlight of one of them was a round table where we had many of our hosts. I know Steve Gibson, I feel like it was Paul Thurrott. There was a bunch of them talking just kind of like this about stuff. And, we're always so focused on the topic of the show that we rarely get to just kind of chat. And those are always my favorite moments. I miss those New Year's Eve marathons, as bad as they were on my health.
Oh, was there lots of drinking?
Yeah,
no. You can't do 24 hours and drink.
It was just 24, if not 25 solid hours of podcasting for Leo anyways. Yeah. The rest of us were able to kind of like cycle in and cycle out. But Leo was there the entire day.
So the idea was, because the one New Year's Eve, Lisa and I we were somewhere, I can't remember. We were watching, Dick Clark's Rockin' New Year's Eve or whatever. And it ended at 9, which is midnight in New York. And we said, okay. And there was nothing. Yeah. And I said, well, this is the bias of the media. It's over in New York, must be over everywhere. By the way, they've since just started doing reruns, but that's not any good either. So I thought, what if because we're global, what if we celebrated New Year's Eve in every single time zone?
Mm-hmm.
And that was a terrible idea, but we did it starting.
It was a great idea. It was difficult, but it was a great idea.
John, credit to Jammer B, because he wired up a balloon drop that you could then pull up again, because we had to do a balloon drop every hour. In some cases, in the half hour and the quarter hour, we had giant bottles of $10 champagne that we would pop the cork, and we do the countdown every hour. And the balloons would come down, and then you go, pull them up. When we left the brick house, that was the saddest moment for me, was when John looked up.
Oh, that was so special.
I got to use this once. But those were great. Those were really great shows. Yeah. There were a lot of, I looked back through TWiT, and there were a lot of great moments that I remember we did when the second iPhone came out. We didn't do this on the first iPhone. With the second iPhone, we did another marathon. I don't know what was with me in marathons. We did another 24 hours of iPhone. And Wozniak called it from the line out front of the Palo Alto Apple store. And that was kind of cool. We had Woz on. There are a lot of good moments. TWiT has been a really wonderful adventure for me. And I'm sorry it has to end now. Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
What?
That would be awful, wouldn't it? Oh, and I forgot to tell you guys, this is it. It's over.
Yeah. We're also just
Micah has no TWiT
made
memories.
Aware of this.
No, I'm just kidding. I think it has been a little tough, because just like every other Main Street USA business, revenue is way down. Advertisers are saying, we don't want to, we can't afford ads anymore. So we get hit like everybody else. We're not as bad as a restaurant, but
yeah.
Jason, you've been here the second longest. What is your favorite?
Second longest. Well, I was going to say the New Year's event also, just because that was such a unique 24-hour experience. And in particular, the first one, because we did two of them. The first one just went in so many different directions, with you shaving your head, getting a live tattoo. It was just.
Want to see it?
Was all over the place.
I never saw this.
There. No.
Wait a minute.
Okay.
It's this big. It's so small. Lisa said, you can do it, but it's gonna be small. And the thing I didn't realize is that we were going to get married that January, like 3 weeks later, and I was going to be bald in all the wedding pictures.
Oh, wow.
But you know what? You literally took one for the team. You took many for the team.
We raised $85,000 for UNICEF, and I think that was a great thing. Yeah.
It really was. So that experience was really special. One very memorable moment that I can think of, and it wasn't a joyous moment, but it was definitely an interesting time where we all kind of came together, was when Steve Jobs passed away. And I remember being in the studio when that happened, and I think we were like setting up for TNT or something was going on. We were setting up for a show, and suddenly that was the news, and just watching all the activity in the big studio room. And
Kevin Marks, we were interviewing Kevin Marks.
That's what it was.
On Triangulation. Yeah.
And suddenly everybody just kicked into gear, and we were like, all right, we know what we need to do, live, streaming coverage, and commentary and pulling people in. And it was like, we went from a network where we're producing these particular shows to a live tech news coverage network where it's almost like we were like CNN of tech in that moment, just kind of covering in long form what's happening with Steve Jobs, and everybody was just in it, and everybody was to a certain degree devastated by the news. No one could really understand or even expect it, or whatever the case may be. And it was just, I look back at that event and kind of see the solidarity of the team, where we all just kind of okay, we're in this. Let's do this. Let's do what people want to see and hear. And I feel like we did a really great job through those days.
That happened.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. When that happened, I remember where I was. This was when I used to live in this tiny apartment called Chateau Ghetto. I had gone across the street to do laundry. And when it happened, I got the little alert on my phone, and I immediately tried to browse to TWiT's live stream to see what's going on with you guys. And I remember, it was about 6 or 7 p.m. Eastern time.
That's right.
It was dark. And and I pulled it up because I was thinking, okay, well, TWiT's probably got something going on. So I pulled it up to see what you all were going to say about it, because I figured you had more credible information versus all of the gibberish that I was going to get everywhere else. But I remember that like it was yesterday.
It sounds bad to say it, but everybody who works in broadcasting actually, I don't want to say cherishes, but in a way cherishes those moments of crisis, because that's when you're most needed.
Yeah.
And that it's okay. It's not a dry cough. And that's when,
thank goodness.
although I'm getting a little sweaty, maybe it's because I have a fire going on a beautiful spring day. I just thought I thought it would look good, but now I'm regretting it. Jeez Louise. It's getting hot here. Because you have and I think you sense that even like during this crisis, the news people kind of leap into it with some relish. And it's not because we look forward to bad news. We don't. But that's when you feel, and I know you guys feel this now, that's when you feel most useful. And I've been doing this long enough. You know, there have been many. There's 9/11. I was working at Tech TV with Erica Hill, and I were anchoring our 9/11 coverage. And, you know, we would do the story. She was from New York. She was devastated. We'd go into commercial. She'd take a moment, you know, she'd go off set and take a moment to compose herself because she was so devastated by it. And then she'd come back on and be superbly professional. I remember in the earthquake in 1989. I was at the World Series game, rushed back to the radio studio. Tiles had fallen off and stuff, and started broadcasting. I think we did 3 or 4 days with very little sleep. So this is just another one of those. And that it's not that we look forward to it, but boy, that's when your mission really becomes clear. And that's what we're trying to do today. I mean, we're trying to keep you company, just as we're keeping ourselves company.
Totally.
No doubt.
Yeah.
My moment that I remember the most is back when you first left the cottage and you had the whole parade. You was walking down the streets of downtown Petaluma. Y'all had the vuvuzelas. And I remember watching that and thinking it was so damn cool to see that this man had built this podcast empire. I wasn't watching television. I was watching podcasts, and just to see what you were doing. And I thought it was just so cool. You had Mr. Gizwiz walking behind you, and everybody in Petaluma was just waving at you. And it was such a crazy and cool event. And you turn, it was just a new era. And I was hooked. I was hooked from that moment, for real.
Thank you, Ant.
And I'll never forget that. That's
it.
Oh,
wow.
TWiT Live special number 87. We're doing this wirelessly because, in fact, at some point, there's Alex Gumpel in the blue shirt over to the left.
Yeah, and you
there's
look,
Lisa carrying the Emmy.
People in Petaluma are looking at you. You know, the people in Petaluma,
crazy.
They're not like wondering who the hell is this guy, but people were supportive of
There's
you.
Brent By carrying the camera using a wireless rig that Colleen Kelly crazy. Oh, actually, that looks like the Ustream on his back. So we had a Ustream by then.
Ustream.
Yeah. And it was a live stream. Okay, it was a live stream box. Thank you, John.
I remember watching that and thinking nothing like that is going to happen where I live, and I just thought this was so freaking cool.
Yeah, we've had some amazing times on Twitter, I have to say. Yeah, that was crazy.
That is pretty cool.
And shout out to Mac File for putting this question in. She's a super duper supportive person in the Twit community, as well as on the Twitterverse. Thank you
she's
for that
big
question.
on our forums. And thanks also, I got to give a plug to my wife and our CEO, Lisa.
The boss.
Because she built that studio. That studio would not exist. $1.5 million studio. We raised $250,000 through bricks. Thank you to all the people who helped out with that. But Lisa found the rest of the money and completely made it possible, and also oversaw the construction. She had worked in the building industry as a controller for one of our big developers in town, so she knew a little bit about construction. So she built that whole studio at a great expense. There's one of the bricks. That's Chad. OMG Chad.
Obey all traffic laws or we'll need a parade permit.
Look at this, man.
Only in
Do you see how crazy this is, y'all?
I mean, this is pretty
Who's
awesome.
carrying my ball? Somebody's carrying my ball.
Hammerman, my favorite ham.
There's
There's
Russell.
Russell.
John carried the ball. Jammerby. There's Russell, our engineer, who's been with us since the beginning and made it all happen for us. Without Russell, it wouldn't exist. Alex is carrying the TWiT pillow with his. Alex is now working at Como TV in Seattle. We miss him. Alex Gumpel.
Oh, yeah.
There's Lisa with the Emmy. And Dick has the Vuvuzela from the World Cup in South Africa.
Vuvuzelas, yes. My memory might be
I don't know who was carrying the clock.
I don't know what I ate for dinner yesterday, but I do remember stuff like that quite vividly.
I know, isn't that weird? Well, again, what a privilege it is for us to be able to create those memories for people. It's something. Yeah, and we actually rented those giant scissors. It was so expensive that the next time when we opened the East Side Studios, we bought a pair of scissors, and they still sit around in the offices somewhere. You don't really get to use giant scissors that often.
Yeah, I got to use them whenever we launched the video version of Smart Tech Today, and those things are impressive. They are impressive.
Everybody should own a pair of giant scissors.
I mean, it only takes like 3 seconds to give yourself a haircut. It's pretty nice.
Right, yeah, just all at once.
Or chop off your head by accident.
Haircuts.
I was so proud of those studios. I miss them. The sad short story is that the owner of the building, who wasn't a very good owner, when the sewer system went out, he, instead of putting a new system in, he just tied us to the restaurant next door, which wasn't the most sanitary. But anyway, he decided to sell it and told the new owners, "Oh, they'll never leave. Look at the studio they built. They can't." And the new owners tripled the rent. And said, but it's only for a few months because we're going to put a brew pub in, and your studios will be our brewery. And we said, yeah, we better find another place, which we did. And we moved everything, I think, to their dismay. It's now like a WeWork style workplace because the restaurant next door went belly up very quickly.
But that's typical with restaurants, though. It's not an easy.
Oh, yeah.
business.
Well,
and especially that particular location. It seems like any restaurant that ever goes into that location is out in like 2 years.
3 different owners not only went belly up, but walked away, left the silvers, the napkins, everything, and just went,
we're not here. We're out.
Yeah.
Wow.
3 times. So I think that's a bad location, would be my guess.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because it's next door to the murder garage. Okay. I'll tell you that story another time. Here's the photography question. Memories. Well, it wasn't the murder garage, but they did follow the trail of blood into the garage. So I guess actually there's something about our old studios because there was a double homicide in this driveway of the cottage after we left.
Son.
Wow.
Petaluma's dark.
It's a dark. When I moved to Petaluma,
Dark place.
I remember telling my family there's only been one murder here in 20 years. It's safe.
Wow.
Kjeld, Kgeld, Keld Mahoney from Massachusetts. What software, it's going to be for Ant, would you recommend teaching photography classes live where students can ask questions and interact on video at the same time? I don't know. What would you, is there something, Ant?
Why not just YouTube Live? It gives you a chat room right there. It's free. As long as you have bandwidth, you can share your screens. Why not YouTube Live?
Good. I think that's, unless anybody has another.
No, I think
right.
that's a good one.
From
well, of course, you got to have something like OBS, online broadcasting or XSplit. But yeah, I would pipe it straight up to YouTube Live. That's what I've done with my channel. Interesting.
I have a number of questions from churches that want to stream live now because of this. This is an explosion. Alex Lindsay, who was struggling a little bit, suddenly he can't find enough people to do his stuff. He's so busy.
Yeah.
Streaming, what we do, this is all we're, thank goodness we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Geek Corner UK. I would love to know if TWiT has any plans on expanding or creating shows in other countries. You have plans of going international? Hell no. I can barely keep it going here. I think the real answer to that,
hell no.
People ask us that all the time, and I always say, people ask, when are you going to do a Latin America version? I say, do it. Do it. It's better to be done by the people who live in those countries. We don't have any expertise. We don't know what it's like to be using technology in the UK. You do it. The templates here. It's easy to do now. It's inexpensive, and don't call it This Week in Tech, but otherwise
Please
you
don't.
do it because please. But we have enough on our plate as it is. I'm not going international. You remember this probably, Jason. For a while, I made a lot of noise about we want to open an East Coast studio so we could do a morning show. I wanted to do a live morning show. You can't do it here in California. You'd have to get up and start at 3 a.m.
Right.
But you could do it if you had a New York studio. And I thought, this would be great. And I really spent a lot of energy thinking about it. But it's not, I keep forgetting that giant studio we built for $1.5 million, New York studio, all these ideas. We're just a freaking podcast network. What am I thinking? I'm not NBC.
Right.
No, but I respect the fact that you have that in those type of.
I had a lot of ambition in my youth.
Ambition is good. That in my opinion, that just shows that you're driven. And if you're driven, you're not going to just be sitting stagnant.
And then stay warm in here.
It's warm. I'm dying. You could turn that one off. I only put that on for the looks.
You guys are still gassing?
We're still gassing. They've got questions. We've got gas.
There's been some good questions in here.
I'm gonna finally break for lunch, but we just got another renewal coming in, so I think
hey, we can keep going for another month.
I gotta hit up all the home exercise people next, B2B. All these enterprise
Peloton. They're going to be
all these enterprise places canceled their their big live events, so they're reaching out to us. So I'm going to do a shameless shout out. If you have a home gym app or anything and you want to be on TWiT, reach out to me now. We're perfect for anything because we're doing coronavirus discounts for Q2 and Q3. So
we're having a sale. Because
right.
how many sponsors canceled? A handful
so far, but most of them are getting the reality that if everybody pulls out, 20% unemployment already, it would be bad. So people are realizing people got to live, they got to eat, they got to do stuff. So, we're going to do our best.
I'm trying. Do I get paid this month?
No. So the first people that don't get paid in crisis are us.
Oh, good.
I'm working for free, kids. Actually, not even free. I paid a lot of money.
Shut up.
Thank you, sir.
Lisa and I both put in a significant amount of money.
We screwed up on our taxes. That's our fault. We can't
It's not our fault.
I didn't screw up. I just didn't do the research. So when we got the tax bill, I went, yikes.
Oh,
okay. Don't worry about it.
We had to dig into our savings. Let's put it that way.
It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
I'm looking forward to the 2021.
Don't panic. Think meow.
Meow.
I'm going to go make some lunch.
All right.
I love
No, I'm good.
Thank
you. As I said earlier, thank God, because I have no business sense. She's if it weren't for Lisa, we really wouldn't have a business. It'd be just me back in the cottage. It's gonna, you know what? TWiT during this crisis is gonna look a lot like it used to. If you're nostalgic or you never saw how TWiT was in the old days, it's because we're gonna do everything from my office with the 4 box. That's how it's all gonna be. That's how
nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That way I don't have to bring in TDs. I realized because we were doing remember the fake round table with me and an avatar? That's nuts. So I'm just gonna do everything from the office. I will be the technical director. I'll do all the switching and the audio. And that way we won't have to, because I don't want, we have to bring in some people, but I want a minimum number of people. Lisa's moving her stuff out of the office today. Debbie, our continuity manager and office manager, refuses, but she's all alone in her office because her office mates, Sarah and Ashley, are not coming in. We had our two salesmen, Dano and Max, were in, and I said, "What are you doing here? Get out of here!"
Right.
Well, they're relatively new, and they said, "Well, we need help." But I think we've convinced them at least to use separate offices. Colleen was in the other day. I said, "Go home, go home, go home." I actually scolded her. Apologies, Colleen, but this is real. Honestly, we want everybody to stay safe. And we don't want anybody to get sick. And we, secondarily, we don't want anybody to bring it in.
Right.
So,
exactly.
Because I'm old. So actually, it turns out, what was it? 40% of the cases now in the U.S. are between 20 and 44. So Utes, you're not safe either.
We
You're
ain't
not
safe.
either.
Nobody's safe.
Nobody's
telling
safe.
you.
Stay in. Wash your hands. Do all
And
the things you need to do.
Add some brown liquor to your diet, you'll be okay.
Oh
That's
my
it.
God.
Okay, we'll see, Ant. We'll see. This is a little experiment.
exactly.
I'm drinking 54 ounces of vitamin C every day. You drink your brown liquor.
You
We'll
keep
see.
going with your brown liquor there, pal.
If he goes, though, he'll go happy on the bright side.
There you go.
Right.
Hey, you got to think though. Think back to like my grandparents, that were in their 70s and 80s or whatever, and how they grew up. Whenever they got sick or whatever, they had toddies. They had hot toddies, and even when the kids got sick, they gave the kids a hot toddy. And that
You know
was
what the
just
life
some
expectancy was in those days?
Hey, they lived to their 70s and 80s, man. They lived to their 70s and 80s. They did something right, and they ate pork fat all the time too. Come on.
Yeah.
We're not recommending this. As a
Yeah.
life.
Maybe Ant is. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
I am not recommending. I'm just telling you how I roll.
There you go.
There we are. There's the ball
the
rack.
exercise
So briefly, we thought everybody should sit on a ball, and we thought our studio audience. We thought, we'll have a whole bunch of balls for our studio audience. I don't know what I was thinking.
No.
That's hilarious.
I don't know what that did not work out. By the way, fortunately, I never have run out of balls since. Wasn't Kansas City, Chris Williams. It was St. Louis versus Philadelphia. Just search for that. You'll find it. 1918. Here is from Be Our Guest, Mike. Oh, hi, Mike. I met Mike in St. Louis. In fact, I'll go get his hat
nice.
while you guys answer the question. I met him in St. Louis. He runs the Be Our Guest podcast. Professional, full-time podcaster. How can traditional podcasters do a bit more to build community and keep listeners entertained outside of their normal niche? He's a little bit stressed right now because his show is all about Disney theme parks, and there's not a lot going on in the Disney theme parks. You guys have any theories about keeping your audience connected? I think what we're doing is one way to do it, right?
Yeah.
I would answer that is have what we have is the TWiT.community. And yes,
you're very active in that. Thank you, Ann. I appreciate it.
Sure. We have all of our shows in there, but then there's couple times where you'll see topics branch off into things that are totally random, and it spikes some interesting conversation. Sometimes we'll go off the rails here and there, but most of the conversations in there are pretty thought-provoking if you just dig into it, and it's got nothing to do with any of our shows. It's just humans being good humans and just conversing amongst themselves in a safe place. So I say an online forum.
Since 1994, when I started doing computer talk radio on my own without the help of John C. Dvorak, I've had a chat room running. And I always knew that having a community that could talk back to you. I mean, I was doing talk radio anyway, so people could talk back to you. But even opening that up broader, because not everybody wants to call a radio show or can. There's our chat room. So having that chat room was the first step in really making it interactive. And Micah posted in the QZ article. Thank you, Micah. But then we realized, well, not everybody's watching live. So you can't call the radio show. You can't be in the chat room if you're not watching live. Well, you can be in the chat room, but you just won't be able to interact with the live show. Hi, Mom, says Patrick. But what we also did recently is we created a forum. That's www.twit.community. And I also created a Twitter clone based on Mastodon, which is a wonderful federated Twitter clone, and we have twit.social. So I think that's one way to do it, right, Ant? Is just give the community as many ways as possible to interact with you.
Yeah, I agree. Just create a safe space, and people will just chit chat and go on about their business, as well as support your brand and your product.
The thing to remember is it's not. There's Twit community. It's not. There's MacFile, by the way.
Right at the top. There she is again.
Right at the top. She's very active. It's not my community. It's your community. And that's the other thing to remember is if you're blessed to have a community around what you're doing, it's actually this Bernie Sanders slogan. It's not me, it's us. Mm-hmm. It is us. And it's really important to remember that the best thing a podcaster can do is build a community, and to remember that community is what sustains you, what feeds you, and you're there to support them, not vice versa.
Yeah,
Jason,
one thing
you've got a lot of experience with this. What do you recommend?
Well, I think everything that we're talking about right now, and particularly what we're doing right now, especially in this moment in time, makes a lot of sense for me as far as maintaining that community is concerned. Think about all the people who are already holed up right now, bored out of their minds, looking for something to distract them. And think about the fact that that number's probably only going to increase over time. Not that something like this is an opportunity necessarily, but it is a chance to connect on a deeper level with the people who already connect with you. And by and large, if you're doing that in an entertaining way, or a way that helps kind of relieve some of the stress, this pent up stress that people have right now, whether you're talking about Disney theme parks or not, if people already follow your podcast and they connect with you on a personal level, and sure, there's the shared interest in what you actually podcast about, but you've already got that human connection. They're already used to hearing your voice in their ears on a very personal level. Now is an opportunity to continue that conversation, maybe even take it into other directions that you hadn't considered. I'm talking to the person who asked the question right now, apparently. But take it into other directions, because ultimately, like what people are looking for right now is a way to kind of take their minds off of what's going on, a nice friendly distraction, because there's plenty of time to focus on the bad stuff. Hopefully what we can offer is a way for you to kind of take your mind off of that and focus on things that make you happy. And I think any podcaster or anyone who's in the content creation space right now is in a really interesting position, because I mean, our audience is vast. It's way more vast and accessible now than it was a couple of weeks ago, because people are looking for options.
And then the other thing to do, and this was always something that I believed in, is have a custom hat for your podcast.
That helps.
We have Fez's. Mike has the Be Our Guest podcast hat, and he gave this to me, Micah, for our app cap, and I forgot to bring it in last week.
Oh, fun!
By the way, and incidentally, if you're tuning in for This Week in Enterprise Tech, it's about 10 minutes off. We will keep going up to that point, and then we'll toss it off to Lou and his team. But we have a great podcast coming up for folks who want to get organized, and I think this would be a good way to start your plague journal on iOS Today. On Tuesday, we're going to interview the developer behind my current favorite productivity tool, which is Notion, and it's called Notion.so. And so I'm just a little plug for an upcoming show. Let's see real quickly from Michael Hansel. I love this one. Can you teach network news on how to use Skype? One of the funniest things, because of course, at least MSNBC, actually CNN's been using Skype a lot too. They've used it for a long time. But MSNBC is doing something a lot more like what we do. Every anchor is in their own private studio, and almost all the guests are via Skype. And I was watching the other day, and they had somebody, and John and Carson will recognize this, using, I hate it, the Apple iPhone headsets. People try to do this to us every time, and I always yell at them. And then what happened is the mics, it was hitting his collar, and there was this.
Yep.
And I'm laughing because I'm thinking,
every time.
Well, they're learning a little lesson we've learned.
Feeling a little smug.
Smug. There was echo. Everything that we have learned over the years about how to use Skype properly. CNN and MSC are having to learn right now, which I think is hysterical.
I saw that also the night someone put in our chat. I think maybe it was Anthony put in our Slack chat that the nighttime shows, they're doing kind of off the cuff, recorded on their phone interviews and stuff, because
Conan O'Brien is doing his whole show on his iPhone from his house.
That's amazing. I love that.
That's not going to work. Have you seen it yet? I can't imagine.
No, I haven't seen that one in particular. But I mean, it kind of doesn't care if it doesn't work, because everybody's working.
Yeah, everybody's kind of going.
The effort.
I appreciate the effort, and it was hilarious. Like I saw the Jimmy Kimmel one that I think, like I said, Anthony posted in Slack. Jimmy Kimmel's like second night where he recorded his intro monologue. You know, his wife was holding the phone and his daughters were photobombing the entire time. It was totally
They're all
imperfect.
podcasters now.
And there's a
It was
solidarity
totally
to it, I
imperfect,
think.
but it was amazing because
it's
of
human.
You know,
and you know
Yeah.
why people like TWiT and like podcasting? Because instead of that blow-dried BS fakey stuff that they've been seeing fed on broadcast for years, there's normal people talking to them normally. And I think that's the magic of what we do. And I think they're going to learn it could be the magic of what they do. Yeah, it's not perfect, but it's not distancing either. The problem with all that polished distances, you know, then they're somewhere out there on stage instead of in your life doing the kinds of things you do. So I like it. I think that aesthetic's going to happen. Although, did you watch John Oliver last week tonight on Sunday? That was painful.
Oh,
what
really?
comes home to me is how important a laughing audience is. Because he'd do the jokes and it just like
oh
no.
silence.
And it was hard for him to do. Yeah, thank you very much.
See, all John Oliver needs is a jammer beat. And
Yes, exactly.
You know, if you ever watched, now I know, don't yell at me because it's the geek's favorite show, but if you've ever watched Big Bang Theory, occasionally people put on YouTube Big Bang Theory without the soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
It's not funny. There are no jokes. But because, I mean, they're really, some of them are just, the lines aren't funny. But because people are laughing, it's funny.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it tells your
that's
brain, this
mirror
is funny.
neurons that we have, and depending on how many mirror neurons you have, you are more empathetic or less empathetic. And so laugh tracks and things like that take advantage of those mirror neurons that we have. It's the same reason why we are more likely to yawn if the person that yawns is someone that we care about or someone that we know. And it's why dogs actually have mirror neurons. I can't speak for cats. They tend not to, but dogs have mirror neurons as well, so they will also yawn if they see their owner yawning, assuming that their owner is someone that they enjoy, as opposed to someone who's mean to them or whatever.
My dog will breathe like I do. I've caught him doing it.
Wow.
I tend to every now and then, and Kyler will sit right here and do the same thing.
Oh,
does it all the time.
That's so cute.
I never noticed it until the family mentioned it. It was like,
by the way,
like you.
Kylo's starting to look a lot like you, Ant. I just want to mention that. That was the same question. John S. said the same thing. What's it like seeing all the major media struggle with the issues you've struggled with? Here's from the Vikram Mohan. What podcasting setup would you recommend for a small studio? Tips or tricks? We've kind of talked a little bit about that. Nowadays with Anchor FM. Oh, is that Mitzi or Henry?
This is Mizzy. Yeah,
Mizzy,
she is.
Oh,
Hi, Mizzy.
She's got your
so
eyes.
old. Look at her.
She's got
Her face
Micah's
is swirling
eyes.
white. Yeah.
Definitely Micah's.
Oh, Mizzy.
With that, you don't have any animals you can bring out. Let's bring out our animals.
Hold on. Well, okay, hold on.
That would involve me leaping over this precariously placed table to open the door, and I'm not even going to try it. I will.
Okay.
I will
Hey,
take
Kylo,
the
come
whole
here.
table down if I do that.
We have been
Henry's-
posting, thanks to Masako, our wonderful marketing person, and Jerry. We've been posting pictures of us in our native habitat with our animals, with our hobbies, with our home studios on Twitter. If you follow @TWiT on Twitter, you'll get those pictures in our social media efforts. We have an Instagram account too. What is that Instagram account? I don't
It's
remember.
twit.tv.
twit.tv.
on Instagram.
Twit.tv. And
No,
then
I got both
we
of
have a TikTok, which is Twit Talk, which is very talk. Oh, look, there's Henri. Bonjour, Henri. Oh my God, they're so cute. He looks a little sleepy. Has he?
Yeah, he tends to be. No, that's his. So it's funny. If they had voices, Henry would be an old British. Wait, that's Mizzy. Mizzy would be a Southern belle, but Henry would be an old British man. I'm convinced. He's just got always sleepy kind of.
from my nap. I
Can't
must
be
go back
bothered.
to sleep. Bring me a bottle of gin and a cigar.
Kyler
Where's
is
my
ignoring me
pipe?
for some reason.
Where's my pipe? This Week in
Jax
Enterprise Tech is
did
coming
that.
up. I want to thank all of you guys We're going to do more of these. In fact, I'd like to do something like this every week. Lou Maresca, who's the host of TWiT, says he wants to do one. I think we will do more. We are very grateful to you, our audience. We are very aware of how hard this is for everybody all over the world. It's hard for us too. I'm super grateful to our team because many of them sacrificing to bring you this, and we're going to keep doing it. We're really fortunate to have this community, and it's not me, it's us, and we're going to keep on doing it. So thank you everybody for doing it. Thank you Jammer B for coming into the studio to pull the buttons and pull the knobs and everything. Thank you to Laura, our new she's our events producer, and she's really great. I think our newest employee, and she did all the Q&A. Thank you, Laura. We tried to get her on camera. We don't have enough.
She's pretty awesome.
Yeah, she put this together really, and we just hopped in, and it was all so pretty and had colors, color coordinated and everything. So it made it easy for us, which I appreciate. And I want to reach out to or mention too, we've gotten in the past week or so a lot of really kind messages over social media. I've gotten some direct messages as well from folks thanking us for the work that we're doing, and that. I don't know. We don't do it for the thanks, but the thanks that have come has been so kind and really drives home that what we're doing is helpful for people as we hope it would be. And so I appreciate that, and just want to thank everybody who has reached out and said, hey, thank you for doing these shows. It means a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely.
This is your TWiT team. We appreciate it. Ant Pruitt, Jason Howell, Mikah Sargent. I'm Leo Laporte. Thank you so much for joining us for this AMA. We'll come back and do more. Yeah, and we'll see you on the air at twit.tv, and keep listening. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.